fear. The spirit of fear comes from the enemy, from Hasatan, the devil. It does not come from the almighty, one and only true God, YeHoVaH, Jehovah. Blessed is his name. Jehovah does not give his people a spirit of fear, but he gives them and he fills them with a spirit of love, of power, and of a sound mind, or of self-control is another way it could be translated. And let me tell you something, my brothers and sisters. If you are looking for the spirit of love, of power, sound minds, self-control, if you're looking for it, Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, is not the place where you're going to find it. Certainly not find it in great abundance. Love, power, and sound minds, they seem to have fled this region. What you will find in our nation's capital, however, is that spirit of fear. That spirit that can only come from the enemy. This whole region is dominated by it. Fear is everywhere. And everyone, from the great on down to the least, and everyone in between, it seems like everyone is consumed by it. Fear, fear, fear. To the degrees of paranoia. The politicians of the United States of America, they are consumed with the spirit of fear. How else do you explain how Washington, D.C. right now is basically on lockdown? So many of the government buildings, from the White House, all of the buildings surrounding the White House, the Capitol building, all of these government structures are surrounded by a 10-foot tall iron barricade that just goes on and on and on for hundreds of yards. A wall surrounds these people. And it's so hypocritical, so unbelievably hypocritical how these same liberal leftist politicians were so against the building of a wall along America's southern border to protect America and Americans from actual crime, to protect America from illegal immigration and protect Americans from the drug trade, from sex slavery, sex trafficking of both adults and children, violence, rape, murder, gangs, all of these evils. A wall along America's southern border can certainly help to protect America from these things. And these liberal leftists who could do nothing but fight Donald Trump for 4 years on the building of that wall. No, the wall is racist. Walls are bad. Walls only divide. They are just terrible things. They're so against the building of walls, and yet when it comes to protecting themselves, they seem to have no problem with them. They have no qualms whatsoever about putting up walls and putting up barricades and surrounding themselves with law enforcement and army and National Guard, as long as it means protecting themselves. So fear, they are consumed by it. And these other government buildings, if they're not barricaded off with this iron wall, then so many of these other buildings are closed to the public because of COVID-19, the coronavirus. Oh, it's so terrible. If you get it, you only have a 99.5% chance of living. It's almost as bad as the flu. So many of these other buildings, the museums, the Smithsonian's, they're all closed off. They're all closed to the public. You can still go to the memorials like the Washington Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the War Memorials, the Jefferson Memorial. You can still go to Arlington Cemetery. But as far as the Smithsonian's, the Air and Space Museum, the United States Museum for the Holocaust, the Holocaust Memorial Museum, these are all on lockdown. They're all on lockdown. Everyone, as I said, from the great on down to the least, they're all consumed with nothing but fear. And you want to talk about an absence of the spirit of love? My goodness. You walk into some of these places of business and you don't wear a mask, as I don't. I choose, I don't want to wear that stupid mask. I know that these masks do absolutely nothing for us, nothing whatsoever. Even on the box that you purchase these masks in, it says it doesn't protect you from COVID-19. There's no protection going on here, absolutely nothing. But you walk into some of these businesses, and even as I'm walking through the front door, I haven't even passed through the threshold yet. You've got somebody up at the front desk 15 feet away that goes, "Ah, stop, stop, stop. Do you have a mask?" To which I say, "No." "Oh, well then you stay over there then. You stay outside. I'll come out to you and we'll work it out what it is you need." That's happened multiple times. "Whoa, stop, you're not wearing a mask." It's like they treat me like I'm Typhoid Mary. I've got the Ebola virus or something. You know, we are looking at people nowadays like the ancients looked at those who had leprosy. "Ah, leper! Leper!" And they would take up stones and throw it at them. Drive them away. Oh, it's insanity. It is absolute insanity. To prove that point, just how insane these people are, we've got two examples for you. Number one, you've already by now seen the video, the definition of insanity, where these restaurants have these plastic bubbles outside their restaurants in the patio area, which is the only area that so many restaurants will even allow you to eat. You can only eat outside. And you got to be put in these little plastic bubbles to protect you. I mean, we're turning Americans into these these bubble boys and these bubble girls. It's absolute madness. So there's that I've seen multiple times. But then also, the second example that happened to me just yesterday. I went to a cafe where this cafe, nope, you can't eat inside, but we do have this patio area. You can eat outside. And no, they didn't have the bubbles at this particular cafe. So I'm not going to be giving a cafe or a restaurant or any business my business if that's the kind of stuff they're doing. But this place is like, you can eat out on the patio. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll eat out on the patio. So I sat down on one of their patio tables. I was facing the street. So we've got the sidewalk, we've got the street, and then we've got the sidewalk on the far side of the street. People walking this way, people walking that way. And while I was waiting for my food, I thought it would be an interesting experiment to actually count the people that pass by, either going this direction or on the other side of the street going that direction. Those people who are walking, jogging, or bicyclists riding by. And I thought I would count up to 100. And of the 100 people that I saw walking, running, or bicycling, how many of them were not wearing a mask? So this is what I did yesterday. I was sitting there and I was counting. People going by. Keep in mind, there's no law that says you need to wear a mask. There's no law. There is only an executive order from Biden that when you are on public transit, meaning public buses or the metro, then the operator of the bus and the metro, they have the authority under this executive order to demand you put on a mask or you'd have to leave. That's the only thing that's happened, an executive order. But businesses, private businesses, there is no law demanding that the owner of the business requires himself or his employees to wear masks. No laws demanding that the customer needs to wear a mask, even though so many of these people have said, told me so. It's the law, it's the law, it's the law. You got to wear a mask. I'm like, it is not a law. It is not a law at all. But these businesses just go along with it, unquestioningly, sheeple, just walking blindly towards the edge of the cliff, following their masters. But anyway, there's no law. Certainly, there's no law requiring that you wear a mask when you're outside. So there I am sitting there, and I'm counting up to 100 people that are outside, no law whatsoever. They're just outside walking, running, or bicycling. And of the 100 that I counted, how many of them were not wearing a mask? Can you guess? Go ahead. What's your guess? Because I counted 4. 4 people of 100 that were not wearing a mask. 96% of these people are so consumed with fear, with paranoia, that they will willingly put a face diaper right here across their nose and across their mouth, thus restricting themselves, thus enslaving themselves, and they do it outside when there's fresh air to breathe, other than, of course, breathing like the carbon monoxide, from the cars and pollution, but masks aren't going to help you with that either. So 96% were wearing masks. 4 weren't. It's astounding. It is absolutely mind-boggling. The fear, the paranoia that grips this area. But we always need to remember that the spirit of fear, where does it come from? It comes from the enemy. It comes from the devil himself. It does not come from God. God gives us that spirit of love. You know that it was almost a year ago. I think it was like the first week of April of 2020 that I made this video. It was entitled The Social Distancing of the Heart. So we're coming up on pretty much a solid year since I made this video. And in that video, The Social Distancing of the Heart, I talked about this. I talked about how all of the wearing of the masks and the social distancing, you got to be, minimum 6 feet apart from one another. I talked about how it could very easily separate us as human beings, that we would stop looking at each other with decency and with love, but that our love for one another would grow cold, and that we would be forever changed and no longer be a people that would be comfortable with shaking hands or giving somebody a hug. And it's happened. Depending on where you may be in the United States, obviously is going to be a huge factor, but at least in areas like DC, it's happened. People do not treat others like people anymore. Yeah, the spirit of love, it's cold in this area. Very, very cold. spirit of power, individual power, sapped, gone. These people have no power. They have so much potential, as every human being does, but they have willingly, all too willingly, just surrendered that power right into the hands of wicked, perverse men and perverse women. Just handed it all over. Rational minds, self-control, you're not going to find that here either. There's nothing rational, nothing sound about any of this behavior. The lockdowns, the closed off buildings because of COVID, the mask wearing, the treating of others that I simply walk into a building and it's like, hey, where's your mask? I don't have one. I'm not wearing one. I don't wear one. Well, you can't come in then. The spirit of fear comes from the enemy. And you can know all things by their fruits. And we see the fruits of all this. The fruits are rotten. The fruits are disgusting. And they need to be rejected. Completely and totally rejected. Reject the spirit of fear. Cast out the spirit of fear in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. And get yourself filled with that spirit of love, of power, and of a sound mind or self-control. That's what you need to focus on. That's what you need to get yourself filled with. Because that is what comes from God. Don't go willingly. Don't go silently into that good night. But fight the evil. Fight it, fight it, fight it. Have the courage and the boldness to fight it. Wherever you go and whatever you do. May we all be filled with that spirit of power, courage. May we all have that boldness. Every single one of us, because we need it. Do not become a part of this new normal as they are pushing. It's the new normal. I don't want to have anything to do with this so-called new normal, where 96+% of the populace cannot think for themselves. Slaves. Slaves to fear. Slaves to the enemy. It does make me grateful, however, that in other areas of the nation, one area in particular that I'm thinking of, St. George, Utah, southern Utah, there are those that are filled with a rational mind, for certain. I received a video just yesterday, and I was very, very pleased to see this video. Check it out for yourself. That right there is the message America needs to hear, that America needs to embrace. And I applaud the good American citizen, the courageous American citizen that would go out of his way to do that, to promote that message of truth, that message of we the people. We the people have the power, endowed to us from the Almighty God, as power comes from God. It is a gift from YeHoVaH given to us. If only we would use it, if only we would exercise it, then all of this madness, this absolute insanity that we are seeing, none of it would have happened. The government, the media, especially the media, they would have come out and said, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this for your safety, for peace and safety, as the Bible says they will be telling us. And we would stand up boldly and courageously and said, no, we do not. We do not need to do that. What we need to do is fight for our rights, fight for our freedoms, fight for our liberties, because they are worth fighting for. Those rights and liberties are inalienable. They are gifts from God. You will not take them from us. We will not surrender them willingly to you. It's the only reason why this new normal is so normal now, where 96% of the people are just going along with it. Because they surrendered their power. They gave it up and gave it over to those that serve the enemy. But I don't serve the enemy. You don't serve the enemy. Make the choice right here and right now. I will not be filled with the spirit of fear. I will, however, be filled with the spirit of love. I will show love for my fellow man. I will not treat my fellow man like lepers. I will be filled with the spirit of power. I will be bold. I will be courageous. And I will be filled with the spirit of a rational mind and self-control. I'm going to control myself, my mind, my heart, my body, my whole being. I'm going to keep all things in control. I'm not going to allow myself to be bulldozed over by the enemy and those that serve the enemy. I'm Jake Hilton with the Sword of YeHoVaH Ministries. Thank you for joining me.